Good evening, everyone. I'd like to call the meeting to order. It is 5:41. As we always do, start with our vision. The Brownsville Classical School community intentionally values and highlights the strengths of all members through providing a personalized learning experience, celebrating diversity, and practicing creative problem solving in order to cultivate a strong accelerated program to nurture lifelong learners. Norms of our meeting: be results-oriented, be fully present, be respectful of others' time, assume the best intentions, and stay student-focused. Our mission: BCS commits to the personalized growth and empowerment of all. We'll start off with our roll call.
Stephen Mitchell.
Here.
Akira Barclay.
Here.
Charles Barron. Joyce Brown.
Present.
Blake Daniels. Dwayne Davis. Eugene Lewis. Jennifer Lewis, present. Yandi Morris.
Here.
Tamara Hoff Pope.
Here.
Keith Seals. Reginald Spears.
Here.
Nicole Spicer.
Thank you. We have a quorum.
Yes.
Great. We'll move right on to the approval of the minutes. Did everyone get a chance to review the minutes?
Yes.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion been made and properly second. Any discussion? There being none, all those in favor of approving the minutes, please raise your hand. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Minutes will be approved. Move on to the agenda. Everybody get a chance to review the agenda? Entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved. Second.
Motion's been made properly second. Any discussion? There being none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, we'll approve the agenda. We'll go right into old business. If you recall, last meeting, we had a discussion about Kids First and the letter that they wanted to submit with our support to the mayor. There was a lot of discussion, so this week, we decided to have the man behind the letter come and talk to us. From Kids First, Daniel Anello. How do you pronounce your last name, Daniel? Anello. Come and kind of go over the letter and answer any questions you all may have. And his mother is here with us, so be nice.
She's keeping me safe.
You're walking into a safe space.
I'm kidding. I've had some good conversations. I didn't know Dwayne was going to be here, though. Everybody knows Dwayne. So I also didn't know my mom was going to be like, hey, I'm coming with you. And you don't tell your mom
No.
she's not coming with you. So I am grateful to be here. Our work, for those of you who don't know about us, like I figured just real quick who Kids for Chicago is. We started 9 years ago, clean slate, 501c3, got to start from scratch, and really had an opportunity to do something different. When we look at the work in Chicago, for me, like liberating communities, just the work in general around what it means to have high-functioning, high-performing schools for kids, and education being a gateway that opens doors to lifelong opportunity. For me, when I looked at the landscape to start fresh, the one thing I think that places like Chicago, because of systemic racism and the history that we have, do not have actively happening is parents don't get a seat at the table. They're kind of an afterthought. They're routinely are kind of boxed out of really important conversations that happen around system and policy. And if you want to think about how different it is, just close your eyes and think about an affluent school district anyway. There's no question about parents being engaged with, what role they play, just how they're part of system and policy design in those spaces. And so Kids for Chicago really came out of that as an ethos. We've been getting better and better at it, but our work is 1,000% dedicated to parents tell us where we're going to go. Our job is to be consultants for them to help them do it. We look for consensus. We try to get parents across the city. We work predominantly with parents from the south and west side of the city. We have a parent advisory board. I'm happy to answer questions all day about us because I think sometimes there's mythology about who we are. I'm happy to dispel that mythology as well. But the coalition letter really emerged in a couple of ways. The resolution in December to pivot away from privatization of schools and some of these other things that were kind of presented one thing that's important is we're not making decisions for parents. I was like, it's not up to us to decide where this district wants to go, but nobody stopped to ask the parents in our network, or parents anywhere, frankly, in an in-depth way, what they wanted to do. So that was the first resolution, and frankly, our parent advisory board said, hey, this isn't okay, like, we should have been consulted with, there should be some way that they're engaging. There's lots of promises about engagement in that resolution. What I didn't expect was then there would be a series of resolutions that are followed from the board that have all been pretty top-down, with not a lot of engagement. And the engagement, I work closely with CPS, talk to CPS all the time, and the engagement that has happened hasn't been robust enough to really account for a district of this size, or the communities that are not being had benefited. So, Urban League board meeting, several people in the room were like, hey, this is not okay for our communities, our parents are saying the same thing, we said, well, we should say something. That's where the coalition letter emerged. We didn't know how many people were gonna sign on. I think every group that we talked to, I talked to probably 80 different organizations, everyone said exactly the same thing, that they didn't feel like they were part of the process, they didn't feel like they were being engaged with at all. A lot of people did not sign it because of political concerns, but 37 folks, including Dr. Brazier and Father Flager and different churches and Phalanx and organizations from across the city, the Urban League, have all signed it that felt comfortable enough to say, hey, we want to change the process. What the letter asked for, which has been refined, is the same ask that it was at the beginning, is stop the strategic planning process until there's an elected school board, and use the time between now and January 2025, which is actually a hybrid board that will be elected, to do authentic parent engagement. And we as coalition members will help. So that's what the letter asked for. We had a conversation, I think, because of someone who goes here that put us in touch and said, you should talk to the Bronxville Classical School to see if they would be interested as an LSC in signing on. You would be the first LSC to sign on. There are other LSCs that have intimated that they would like to sign on as well, but no one has yet. But we haven't actively been pursuing co-signers for about 3 weeks because there's 37 people but the coalition is still active and we still meet regularly, and now our parents and the Kids First Network and other organizations are meeting with different aldermen, city aldermen that have been concerned about some of the fast-paced decision-making that's been happening. I know that there's also budget stuff that's coming your way. One of the things that we do a lot of work with parents around is helping them just engage on all these issues. When he was talking to our chief of policy today, who is like a budget expert, whether it's state budget or local, we're trying to get smarter on it. I can't answer all your questions today if you have those, but we do a lot of work specifically for parents to just be able to engage in the system in an authentic way. So we would love to have you guys consider signing the letter. I know there's a ton of questions that you had about the letter, but hopefully that's a high level of what it is. And of course, I'm happy to share plenty of content outside of me talking at you. So.
All right, thank you. Any questions?
Well, I just wanted to say thank you, Daniel, for making time to come this evening. I do think putting a face and a voice with the letter is extremely helpful. Just trying to get some of that context from just the letter. I think that there were some big gaps in understanding of like what the purpose of the letter was, how it came about, and what the specific ask is. So just as the building leader, I just want to say thank you. I also want you to know that we also worked with Care First when we first started. Because prior to the parent engagement around the GoCPS process, there was no training, there was no support with applying for school. So early on, we did host info sessions on Saturdays that Care First staffed to explain the process to parents, whether they were applying to elementary school or high school. So we've partnered with you before to benefit our school, but ultimately any parent applying to any school, so that the process will be demythified. So from that process, I think there has been additional parent guidance information and a robust site that parents now have information from. So thank you for coming back. Also, I just want to say thank you.
Great. Any questions?
Yeah.
A little full disclosure real quick. I worked with Kids First because I was a parent that testified to the state when they were doing the passing the law to do the elected school board. So I ended up being like WTTW and another parent that's part of Kids First. And that was just me interacting with Kids First as a parent and community member that also had done a lot of workshops in the community for parents on how to navigate the school application process. What does that look like for my previous job, but also for my work in the community. I just wanted to say that out loud.
No, I was gonna say, so you mentioned that, you've had, I don't know if you're saying you've met with other LSCs to present, or they've showed interest. Why do you think they have not signed on?
Because
Singular.
we haven't met with other LSCs.
You have
This is
not.
the first LSC meeting that I've
Okay.
gone to.
Okay, but you said there, were you saying there was other interest? It seems like you said something about
Yeah,
other
there's-
LSCs.
There's LSCs that are in the Belmont Cragen area, because there's a community that has signed on, his organization has. His work with us has been specifically around trying to get people into LSCs and being more engaged across that community. And he has said a number of the LSCs would consider signing on to that. We haven't gone and had this kind of conversation.
But, okay, so you said they considered, so why do you think it's just a consideration and not a just full, let's go for it? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the number of folks that didn't sign is usually connected to a concern about contracts or being transparent, like retaliation, like potential risk and that sense. I think that was, the reality is like we have 37 groups now, and when we were having those early conversations with some organizations, it was, 10, 15 co-signers, so it was building. LSCs are in a different space, so it's a different consideration for all of you because you work for this district. If I put on my political hat, like what are the risks? I don't think they're as severe as people might think they are. I don't think the administration's gonna have that backlash, but I can't make that call. But that would be the only reason. But we haven't talked to the LSCs yet, so I don't have a big answer on it.
And so then, the last part of my question would be, wouldn't you think it'd be more advantageous to go after individual parents to get the numbers as opposed to, say, for instance, an LSC or some other type of organization? I mean, the ones, people who are really being affected. Signatures from, I mean, I know you mentioned, some individuals who carry a lot of weight behind them by name. But how about the individual parents? I mean, the whole process is to represent the individual parents. So I'm thinking a mass campaign for individuals in numbers would be more meaningful. I'm just wondering.
So we have not, it's not a petition. It didn't emerge as a petition. I think it has more to do with the origin story. Like it was meant to just be a letter to say to the mayor. And the reason we chose the mayor as the target, because we're not saying to the mayor, shame on you. It's really like, hey, you ran on a platform of community inclusion. We believe in that. And we're asking you to step in and tell us how to slow down. So that's where that comes from. The origin story is part of the reason. All of our parents are signed on to it. Like we have a network of 200, like what we call parent champions, people who are actively doing things in advocacy more than just for their own school. And then we have a broader network than that. But part of the parent advisory board's decision whether or not to ratify and move forward with this was that, hey, we're making a decision to sign on to this as the Kids First Network. We just haven't pursued that strategy to do a petition. I think a campaign with parents signing on would be incredible. Limited capacity and resources we have back to the motion team. Doesn't mean we shouldn't. We have until June.
Any more questions? Well, no more questions. Well, Dan, thank you very much. And, I presume, we will take a vote again. I'm gonna move that we take a vote and then we'll see what happens.
I'm happy to answer more questions too if you guys have stuff you don't want to ask here. And I'm wondering like what's the boogeyman question that people might have that you don't, like I'm happy to answer that too. I think that was a good question about, I'm in my head thinking, okay, how do we do a campaign? I could use help, we could use help, but yeah, just let me know. You have my information, feel free to share it with everybody here. And then we would love to come back and do more workshops. Was that before GoCPS?
Yeah, well, it was in conjunction, but it was in the beginning, like really similar to what, Dr. Davis was talking about. How, when we came on in 2018, it was no like informational sessions that peers can come to understand, like, oh, I have to apply to get a PIN before I can do the application. Oh, like there's a window, there's a deadline that you have to apply. So in 2018 and 2019, that really wasn't there, that infrastructure. And we were a really, really small school when we started, so our strategy was to empower the community, specifically around the school of how to apply and gain access to a school that's in their community that they may not know they have access to. So it's a couple Saturday sessions.
We'll come back.
Okay.
And we'll come back to our budgets too, because that's, all right.
Also, one of the few resources that also does bilingual support, so every Kids First session has a Spanish segment. That's a motivating factor for me to encourage parents to engage, because our city, with, not filthy with resources, but like they intentional have like second language, and it impacted me in some of the programming that I did to say, I need to make sure I have budget as resources to make sure as many parents and families have access to resources as possible. And I would say that, like, I'm looking at the resolution right now, and even in the CPS resolution, it's not in Spanish, it's not in Urdu, it's not in Mandarin. You know, like, there's a whole apparatus that should be doing, like, making sure that there's equitable access. And that's not a this mayor's problem, or this CEO's problem, that's a Chicago problem.
Yeah, and I know you guys gotta move on to the next agenda topic, so I'll get out of here. But, to that point, I think that the CPS staff are trying to do the best thing they can do on the engagement side. They need help. I think that they have transitions that are happening with them. They don't have anybody leading their family and communication team. But the decision to release these resolutions, like to post them after public comment sign up has happened, like there was a little bit of that. You don't drop the ball twice, like that happened multiple times. It feels intentional, which is part of the reason that we're pushing to say, hey, like, you have to change this. But yeah, I think that they need help to do it. And so we're actively trying to work with CPS to figure out how to do it. If there's a diplomatic solution to this, we prefer that. So, all right, I'm gonna take my mom shopping downstairs.
Oh, thank you for supporting our students.
She was supporting me before you started. I was like, I gotta get upstairs. Sorry.
No worries, no worries.
Hey, Margot, you visited.
Thank
Thank you.
you.
No, thank you.
So again, I move that we sign on to support as a signer for the letter, with Kids First.
Second.
All right, motion has been made, properly second. Is there any discussion?
Yes.
Okay.
So the boogeyman for me is the potential for retaliation. What have you, I know you are not easily intimidated, but have you considered that for those of us who have concerns? Because I've seen it. As a new Chicagoan, it happened to my older kids' school with their leader. So I can't put anything past CPS.
Sure. I've considered all those things, and I've considered, we didn't say anything, and our budget came, and we're losing $500,000+ by not saying anything. I think this is just the beginning of what can happen to us. I've never really, just in general, seen where, being quiet and not saying something has helped. I feel like the squeaky wheel gets spoiled, but, it can go the other way. But me personally, I'm just not that type of person. I don't feel like we're doing anything wrong. I feel like we be advocating for our students. Nothing is disrespectful about that. We're a selective enrollment school. This says they're moving away from that. We're just protecting our own interests. So I don't see it being like one of those. But, people in Chicago can be petty. Trust me, I know how it works. But I feel like I'd rather go down advocating for our interests than not saying something, and then it happens anyway. That's just my take.
And I'm a bit new to this, so when you say retaliation, can you give some examples of like what does that look like?
My older children went to Blaine a few years back, and their principal was very vocal in challenging some of the information around testing and
Sure.
just
Oh,
was
yes.
just like really head to head with CPS, and it was pretty clear to us, to me as an outsider, that this is not going to end well for him, and every little thing he did, and he did a lot of things for sure, but every little thing he did was fodder for, building the case to get rid of him.
But I'm gonna say, this is not did, I mean,
He
you
was,
could look him up.
he was
I
like.
know Troy.
Yeah.
He lives next door to my parents.
Oh,
I know him well.
there you go. Well, there you go.
I went to
So-
college.
So I wouldn't want something like that to happen to anyone that is advocating for our school.
Do you think, though, that there's any difference between us advocating as a group versus Troy kind of being a person individually that was speaking out very publicly?
I don't know. I know he was kind of like a polarizing individual,
Mm-hmm.
but what happened to the school, we still felt it as a school.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know. I still feel very new to Chicago. Coming from New York City, which isn't much different in terms of the school district. But I don't know. I have like grave concerns because we are a new school where, yes,
I don't want to interrupt you. Are we done?
I want to hear what you have to say.
I just.
Because I feel like I'm, especially juxtaposed with Steve, it's like, I'm the scaredy cat, this is our brave leader. So I just want to.
I don't think you're scared
I
at all.
have-
I think you're.
I mean, it's
cautious.
reasonable. I
Yeah.
think what you're saying is very reasonable.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah, no, you know, but your point is.
Take a
it's
number.
very reasonable. It is very reasonable. So don't feel like, well, go ahead, Ms. Spicer.
I was gonna say, I think you asked a specific question of like, do you think that there will be a difference, a LSC versus like a person? I think an argument could be made that part of the concern with Troy was that he is the principal. He is an agent of the district. And there are expectations in terms of like your communication around concerns that you have with the district as an agent of the district. I think that local school councils are elected bodies that are legislated. So there is, I think that it's a different, I don't think that they are apples to apples, but I do think that that is a reasonable question to ask in terms of retaliation and specifically me. And if I'm being transparent, the number of decisions that I make in a day, if someone wanted to find a policy that I violated, it is very possible that that could happen. But I don't think that this body, would create that type of environment.
And guys, I think also the reality too is we're considered what they call a strong LSC. So us signing on probably be a catalyst for other people signing on. And you know, we're a new selective enrollment school. We have great results as far as our kids. We have a great community. So we're like, you know, the type of organization that they want to say, hey, Bronzeville Classical is on. They'll encourage other people to come on. But I just don't think we can, if we're elected officials and our parents and students are our constituents, then I just can't not, I mean, obviously I'll go with whatever you guys say, but can't sit back and just let them advocate against our interests and we just not say anything.
Principal Spicer, oh, sorry.
No, so my position doesn't change either, and it's not a matter of being scared. I do have concerns, and I still think the approach really should come from individual parents. We have not even surveyed the parents of Bronzeville to see if that's something they would want the LSC to support. That would be one of my concerns too.
Well,
So-
they elected us to make
but
decisions.
I understand that, but you still have the opportunity, just as the question I posed to him, you know, masses of numbers make a whole lot more difference, in my opinion. I've talked to some parents here at Bronzeville. Not everybody feels the same way you do about what's happening even with the budget. I've reviewed a lot of the information, and I'm not exactly where you are. So it's not something that I could support at this point. And that's why I went to a few parents that I thought were a little bit more engaged with how CPS really is run, either their teachers or administrators. And the feedback I'm getting is not exactly what I'm hearing here right now.
Well, I can say the opposite. I talked to a lot of.
I know you
parents,
can,
and
yeah, I know you
Can
can.
you share what some of your feedback has been?
Well, when it comes to even like the budget, I kind of read through some of the preliminary adjustments that are going to be made, and some of the administrators don't exactly see it that, it's not just, we're gonna lose money. In all fairness, it seems as though they're just trying to even the playing field citywide. A lot of these schools that are out here that are not supported, I mean, we get a lot of support just from within, just our parents, contributing to a lot of what we want to do, so it's there. But some of the changes that happen, I mean, it's not anything that's just been directed at classical schools. There are a lot of schools that
That's
are.
wrong, Joyce. I just have to say that is wrong. That's literally wrong.
As the
We-
parliamentarian.
I was gonna say
We're
parliamentarian.
gonna have to put some
Okay.
parameters around it, so if you've already spoken twice, if there are other people who have not been heard yet, you can speak to this, and then we're gonna have to move on, because this'll, we'll keep going. So, if you've already spoken twice, if there's anyone who has not spoken, you can.
I just want to share my point of view from the teacher perspective. I've been in this district for 19 years. I've been at a school that was targeted, not for this reason. And what it does to the morale of the staff, which then trickles down to our children, when you have news cameras and a bunch of contention and LSC versus teachers versus, like, it's a lot. It's draining, and that is why I cannot support it, for fear of that happening again. Because you don't know how it can go. So,
It's the unknown. Can I
Mhm.
have a second go? So, my second question is about the House bill that was introduced and how selective enrollment schools are paired with charter schools, which I was like, is that a bizarre or fair pairing? Because, it's two different things. And so how this goes through in Springfield, does anyone have any insight about how that could potentially impact us? Is there a possibility that we will have some alternative or some appeals process to not lose this close to $500,000 based on that?
Can I just say this? I appreciate your perspective, Ms. Lewis. I think that that's valid, and I think that that's something that we should, elevate. I plan to still abstain, because I feel like as the principal, I have to remain neutral. I cannot choose a side. However, as our staff, as our parents, and as our community representatives, I absolutely want you to vote your heart. While I believe that there are things and strategies that the district can do to even the playing field, I think that the current strategy swings the pendulum in the opposite direction. As a selective enrollment school and schools similar to our type are feeling the changes more deeply, it is literally changing some people's program. You cannot be a world language school and offer one language. Part of the reason why we got classical funds is because we don't get Title I funds that most of the rest of the district gets. Because only 17% of our students are eligible for free and reduced lunch, when most of the district is 80% or higher, which is how our students get free breakfast and free lunch, because the district qualifies for free breakfast and free lunch. So while people got allotments, and we'll go into my budget overview later, our discretionary funds were deeply impacted. And that is going to change what school looks like for us. Because I have to use all of our financial resources to ensure that we have the human capital to make sure that children are safe. So, I just wanna say that hearing Daniel speak and really give the context of the letter and what the ask is, I think that we just have to think about a holistic, my client are the students and the school and the budget that I'm given. I have not slept in a week. So, I don't know what anybody else's experience is. I know every principal that I've talked to, I just had coffee with Sally this morning. We are all feeling it in different ways. And part of it is not just because of CPS budget cuts. The district is not funded the way that it should be. And that is the real issue here. And next year, when we don't have any rollover money from the federal dollars from COVID, it is going to be worse, even worse next year. So, God bless you. So I just want us to be prepared that the shift that we're making this year, we're gonna have to make another shift next year. And if we are making those decisions based on, oh, selective enrollment schools have friends of that can support, oh, selective enrollment schools have parents who can engage, that's not okay. And that's what some people are saying. Oh, we don't have to worry about selective enrollment schools because. So if we are really going to actively fund schools based on what they need, then that's what we need to do. And we shouldn't be put in an other category because we're a selective enrollment school. And that's my last word.
So two responses to Joyce, we're losing $1,000 per student.
I understand.
Period, so that's a loss.
I
We're
understand.
also don't have the discretionary funds that we normally have because of our opportunity index. So we're losing that, so we're losing a lot. I mean, I'm not sure who said it, whatever, but, and we'll talk about it tonight, but that's factual. As far as the charter thing, that is not in the bill that I saw. The original bill was 5766, now I think it's 303. And it does not have a charter, it did not have a charter component to it. It said, it specifically dealt with selective enrollment school, not changing the criteria, not changing the funding, or closing the schools. Now, if they change it, because I literally was texting Mark. Well, no, I'm on the text with the sponsor, Mark.
Okay. Can you ask? Because,
I mean, look, she just sent me the text of the bill.
okay, so
Unless they change it.
they said that it's changing like all day.
Well, it went through committee yesterday, and then today everybody's lobbying against it and for it. But the bill that went from committee yesterday should have changed today. So, but if you know something different, then maybe, but it specifically dealt with selective enrollment schools and not charter. So,
I move that we end the discussion, call for the vote.
we don't have to do that. Yeah, so no more discussion in it. All right, so
I put a motion on the floor.
I had something to say.
Yeah.
I got something to say. I'm
Yeah.
trying to
Okay. So we'll let him last comment.
I didn't hear a second.
Nobody
so
seconded.
Nobody seconded, so you can continue.
Thank you, Promise. So I don't know how many people have read the resolution in order to know what the resolution was. And I'm looking at it right now. I don't know if people have reread the letter, because I didn't want to do that as well, so I can't compare.
I'm gonna download it and put it in the file.
Technology, but after our last conversation about this, I'm gonna monitor my talk time, but I'm gonna try to provide some context. I'm of many minds, and I've talked to a lot of different people about this. I've talked to people on the school board about this. And my first reaction to their kind of announcement was, well, they're just saying something to put it on the record because they're no longer gonna be in charge. And very soon, like the board's gonna change. And the board always changes, and the board changes for a reason, and there's a cycle that our city goes through. And I often think people have very short memories about what that looks like, and so I personally felt it didn't have really any teeth to me. But it really didn't get teeth until everybody reacted to what they said. now it became more important because everybody got into a frenzy. So like the charter schools like were already getting organized anyway for the elected school board, and they got engaged in a different way through the internet network of charter schools. Parents' voices became higher because it was, oh boy, you about to take our school. But even when the media started talking about this, I reached out to people members of the media because I did not like the lack of precise, they weren't using precise language, right? And it goes to what Kira just brought up, like school choice, you know, and the way it was being presented was, this is a blanket statement about what schools should look like and what Chicago looks like. And so then also what I found in talking to people, and engaging with them in a very intentional way, talking about this, is the reason why we have selective enrollment schools is because our city is one of the most segregated cities in the country. The DSEG law and the thing that created citywide magnet schools and busing was to address the segregation in our city. And then I like to say, then Chicago it. Then they put other barriers and boundaries in order to, I'm talking about the 70s, in order to create some different kind of context. And I'll give a very specific context of Lincoln Park High School. You know, Lincoln Park High School has the oldest IB program in the city. One of the reasons Lincoln Park had an IB program, you know, Lincoln Park was close to, you know, very dangerous housing, you know, historically dangerous neighborhood before the gentrification and all of that. But one of the reasons they started IB was to keep a space for the white parents and white families that live in the neighborhood to make sure their students still had access. And I spoke to somebody recently about something happened at their citywide magnet school, and I gave up to citywide magnet school where they saw that the racial imbalance in the school, all the parents, the school is maybe 15% white now. And I say white, and everybody else is people of color, and those people of color might be immigrants and kind of a wide variety of folks. But all the parent leadership is white. And they're like, oh, those parents have kind of, I'm gonna say, taking control of the school in a contentious way to try to protect their interests in the building and the school that they decided to kind of be in. So when I first raised my concern, it was just like, man, I just want people to know the history, understand how we got here, understand why we're here. And then we can't know the minds of the people on the board. It is a bit of an activist board. I know some of those folks, I've worked with them before. But it's also saying, I think this is, if I heard Joyce correctly, it's some people's reaction is Beethoven is up the street and they do get Title I funds because of the Fed dollars, but they're also an under-resourced school. And this, in theory, is supposed to level the playing field on that. This would be my last point, and this is just, again, context and information. That the whole nation is going through this with the budget cliff on public schools. That's the dollars. So this is like not a uniquely Chicago thing. But similarly, the current budget situation and the political situation with the elected school board, in my opinion, is a utopian ideal of how we should think about public school. If things being equal. Chicago is not a utopian idea. I love my city. I take offense to people in Chicago. You petty. People in Atlanta, you petty too. People everywhere, you petty. You petty. But the idea that we are trying to figure out a way to figure out some equity in our city, and we're using school as the proxy for other policy issues that have to do with health equity, have to do with access, have to do with food deserts, have to do with everything. So actually, I don't like the fact that schools are being weaponized in that way, that parents are being pitted against each other in that way, and that this is all part and parcel of that, but it's also not new, because it's been like this in this city since the city was the city, since Usabu flagged down, since it's in the dirt. We got two governors doing fair time. We got a former CEO doing fair time. So we have to also deal with the world as it is versus, and I think some of this is trying to deal with the world as we want it to be. So I just wanted to provide that context, because that was my concerned about like people's understanding the history of this, people understanding how we got here, people understanding what this is. I don't see anything in the language of this letter that I object to. A Kids First letter. Period, point blank. He also is very honest, it's 200 parents. I want you to think about 200 people, I want you to think about the city of Chicago, I want you to think, but you also, he said the names, and smart, like, I'm gonna say Dr. Brazier, say Father Flecker, to say, hey, people that you know in the public eye that are advocates for kids and advocates for schools are saying, yeah, Mayor, we want you to talk to us because you said you would talk to us. And that's what this is saying. I'm gonna decide in moments in my brain and when the question is called whether I'm gonna go for it or not, or whether I'm gonna abstain. Because also, and this is just politically, I work with the whole city on a whole bunch of different things. There are plenty of people in the city retaliating on me on a whole bunch of stuff. You know, this is the one thing I get caught for, you know, like, oh, you on the wrong side of this. I know my rationale and I know how to talk about it, and I said it in public forum. But, you know, I think that context is super important. Finn.
Okay, I'll just say this, and I'll preface by saying that I don't have an opinion either way, so we can do, as an LSC, what we choose to do. But we do have options. If we don't feel ready to vote on this motion, we could potentially table it. If we don't feel ready, if we feel like people want more information, we wanna talk to parents, whatever we wanna do, we could do that, and then we could revisit it, or we could take the vote today, whatever you all wanna do, but we would have to do it now before we call for the vote. I'm just putting it out there. I don't have a preference either way, whatever we do, we could vote for it now, but I just wanted to make everybody aware of the options, that if we collectively don't feel ready to vote on this, we have a May meeting. I think he said it was going forward in June or whatever. We have a little more time. If we don't feel ready to vote on it in this April meeting, we could table it and we can vote on it in May. If we wanna do more fact finding, collect more information, or we can move it forward today. Totally up to this body, whatever we wanna do.
So,
Yeah,
in
that
the-
last-
Withdraw his motion.
let me,
I do not have a dog in the
Yeah.
fight.
Well, okay.
Whatever you all wanna do.
The letter, I
Acting-
did email the letter, so if
acting
you
it-
wanna look at the letter before we decide, I did just email to everyone.
before we do that, I want to go back to the parliamentarian's comment, because that was my recommendation at the last meeting. The motion went to the floor for a vote and it failed. So, I guess my question at this point in time is now it's been brought up again. I was a little bit perplexed that it was even going to be able to be brought up again because it failed at the last meeting.
Wait, this is the same motion? The exact
Yes.
same motion is coming forward again?
Yes, and that was my concern. It failed at the last meeting.
Okay, so, of course, sorry.
My recommendation was that we table it. I was talked down. They went for the vote. It failed.
Okay, so here is my understanding of parliamentary procedure. I'll say this and you all let me know what you wanna do. If this is the exact same motion that was brought up at a previous meeting and it failed, the only person or people who could bring this motion back are those who were in the dissenting opinion. So somebody who is in the dissenting opinion, let me make sure I'm saying this correctly.
Basically having a change of heart and wanting to bring it back.
Correct. So that's not the dissent, excuse me, the pro opinion of the motion could bring it back.
Okay.
So I wanna correct myself and be on record of that. So it's not just anybody who can bring the same motion back. There are very specific rules about who could bring the same motion back.
And then also, it's not technically the same motion because the letter was different at that time. The letter has been revised, so it's a different letter.
Okay,
So
that
it's
is a
not the same
different,
motion.
that's a different consideration if it's not the same motion. I was only speaking to if it was
It's
the
the
exact
same motion, but
motion.
not the same letter. The letter has changed and been updated since the last.
Then
time.
then we will be voting on something different. So,
And so what's changed in the letter now?
I mean, I don't know word for word. You look at it.
This is the one that I have written down.
We have sent you the one I sent it, we sent it out previously.
I wanna make sure I sent out
and not the dissension, I wanna be clear on that I misspoke on that. It's the people who were in the favorable opinion can bring it back, not the people in the dissenting
So-
opinion.
Would it have to be the
Either-
person who
either
made the
way.
motion and seconded the motion then?
The people who voted favorably
So
for the
anybody-
motion that passed.
So I brought it last time, I'm bringing it again this time, so either way.
Yeah. But if it's a different motion, that's a different consideration, that's what I'm saying, if we're
no
not
date
voting
on
on the
it.
same.
I think the
thing,
motion's the
it's-
same.
The motion is the same.
The letter, the
The
content
letter-
of the letter is different.
Yeah, the motion is the same to support the letter, but the content of the letter is different.
Okay, so here's the
letters
workaround. and
don't
then
have
we can move
dates.
forward to keep the meeting moving forward. You could, amend your motion and say your motion is in favor of the new revised version of this letter, which makes it a different motion. So I would just say amend it, restate the motion, saying that we're now getting ready to vote on the revised version of this letter, and then you can move it forward that way.
Okay.
Does that sound okay?
I move that the LSC sign on to support the revised version of the letter from Kids First.
Move to sign on, let's see, to the revised.
Motion's been made. Any additional discussion
Correct.
for the new motion?
Have we explored other ways that we can advocate?
I mean, I'm sure, all of us have, but this is
This is just the
This is
beginning.
just a letter, this is just, if you don't support it, you don't have to, this is, we're not going one way or the other.
I was gonna say that the fact finding part and the bringing Dan to the meeting, Dan coming to the meeting to explain that context was the help. I think was part of that. I don't know what other people did between meetings to like get themselves, I literally went and looked at all the history of the stuff and I put all that stuff on my LinkedIn, follow me on LinkedIn, because I think it's a question about our whole city and how people are advocating and thinking about this work and participating in this way as well, so. I appreciate second the idea that, thank Dan for coming, and hearing it from him, as Principal Spicer said, was useful and helpful. I knew most of that anyway, but it was good to hear the person, the CEO of this organization that he started from the ground up, came to talk about.
And George, I think the parents can, he just saying, their goal wasn't to do a petition, and they don't have the bandwidth to really organize and do that. I think that's something that people can do too. He's just saying, their goal was to get organizations behind it and send it to the mayor and say, hey, let's talk about this, let's not move so fast because you didn't get any input from the community. Not even saying one way or the other, just saying, you ran on transparency and engagement, and here the board passed this, and we're just saying, hey, slow down, let's talk about this before you move forward.
And my position is still the same, I think. Yeah, since you addressed me, is that
Last one, and I think we should probably.
parents.
I do want to just share the converse as well. There are some LSCs that do egregious and very bad things that are not supportive of schools, and there is no retaliation, and they get reelected every year. So if we are doing something that is positive and supportive of the school, that also could be a reaction as well. Because LSCs are independent bodies of the district by design, by legislation. So there's the converse as well.
All right, discussion ended. Want to call for a vote. All those in favor of supporting the letter, please raise your hand.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Is that correct?
Any opposed? Any abstentions? So that passes.
So, I don't know if you got that, and so this was 2 opposed, 2 abstentions, 6.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Next, we'll move on to the budget. Well, the principal's report.
I'm gonna do my principal's report because I have abbreviated it, based on last month. I remember I promised you all I would abbreviate it. I have done that. So you have the new abbreviated version. Only new items, will be shared. I won't go through the demographic information. That is listed on my report inside the Google Drive, I will focus on the, principal domains, unless anybody has any objections. So new under domain one, organizational leadership. I've been busy budget planning, focused on programmatic priorities and student support / acceleration. Under strategic planning and change management, facilitated check-in meetings with a PL specialist and gifted specialist to map out teacher development and revision to the CIWP. Plan and facilitated stakeholder conversations regarding budget cuts, or budget impacts. Let me be impactful with my words. Continuous improvement, develop and support the master scheduling committee to revise the master schedule to minimize split blocks for math instruction based on an analysis of MOY iReady math performance. Looking at domain 2, the instructional core, courses and content. We are evaluating the process for advanced math opportunities, considering Math for All and the Accelerated Placement ACT program design. The Curriculum Adoption Committee is meeting to discuss 8th grade curriculum and literacy and math and school-wide refresh to the math curriculum. And then collaborative partnerships budding with King College Prep to offer high school credits. Instructional strategies, dedicated time during grade level team meetings to track and discuss student academic performance and impact of our PL signature strategies. The final learning cycle to develop practice around using learning intentions or objectives to develop success criteria. Balanced assessment and systems. We finalized a vision to intentionally collect instructional pacing data to drive instructional decisions. Instructional decisions for the upcoming school year by engaging teachers in a reflective process that documents their progress and current levels of performance for students. We are going to be starting in math. Moving on to culture or climate and culture, family and community engagement. We hosted our spring report card pickup with over 90% participation. We had a great turnout for our LSC election, 105 ballots cast. We celebrated today our annual Hindi celebration of Holi, which is a celebration of spring. And then our starting lineup attended the Greater Bronzeville Community Action Council meeting in March to support efforts to invest in the schools in the Greater Bronzeville community. Connectedness and well-being, all Greater Bronzeville are planning incentive field trips to end the year. On a great note, some of the parents got wind of the incentives that we're offering and are duplicating them at home. So teachers are getting a kick out of hearing about that. First and second grade went on their first, and they did the first incentive trip. They went on an architectural tour. And I'm so excited that our core values really teach them skills they need to know as students, because there was a medical emergency, not with our group, on the architectural tour. Bo had to pull over, kids had to do whatever, but they did it very graciously on their field trip. Mosaic also conducted their last small group adult SEL check-in with the staff, and during our debrief, they really talked about how they could see the differences in the staff from this time last school year to this time now. And so it's just exciting to hear that morale is in a much better place. Systems and structure, the creation of the BCS scheduling committee to address some student needs and concerns, really to maximize collaboration and uninterrupted instructional blocks. And some prep time for our essentials teachers, so really trying to be intentional with our master schedule to support students and staff. Last domain, which is talent, around development and evaluation. We are in our last 4 weeks of REACH formal evaluations. We are confirmed for our humanities and STEM teams to do school visits on their release day. The humanities team is scheduled to go to shoot on the far south side to observe Amplify CKLA and Amplify ELA in practice. And then our STEAM team is going to visit Wharton School of Excellence on the west side that just started their gifted program as well. For professional culture and retention, I've engaged staff, and staff were able to engage in some professional reflection when they submitted their preference sheets for next school year. Distributed leadership, I'm excited to say I attended and completed the Open and Retreat for Black Principals Network, which is focused on supporting leaders of color through transformative practices to prevent burnout. And then lastly, I completed my Courageous Principals 1 training, which certified me to lead professional development for school leaders at DeVoy University in Westlake, Texas. Those are all of my academic instructional updates. Questions? Okay. If you all are okay, I'm gonna collapse diverse learners and CIWP into my budget reports, so those won't stand out. But I do have one budget transfer that I'm going to ask for. When we come back in the, when we, oh,
Yeah, just in the interest of time, as you're making the motions, you don't have to give the rationale on the front end, make the motion, and then
Okay.
if there's rationale that you need to get after, just make the motion to keep it moving.
okay. I only have one budget transfer that I'm asking for $1,000.
Make a motion.
Oh, I move that we approve a budget transfer of $1,871.30 from our attendance supply line to the supply line for office for staff items.
Attendance supply line to the office supply line.
Office supply line for staff items.
Second it.
Motion's been made and properly second, so we'll have discussion with you.
If you want to give a rationale now, you can give it, but then we can have discussion, or if you just want to answer, if people have questions, that's fine. You're not required to provide a rationale, but if you want to do that, you can, for their questions.
We're at the end of the school year, so attendance and sittings are winding down, and we need some staff items. So we're just gonna move the monies from attendance supplies to office supplies.
Any questions? Any further discussion? All right, there being none, all those in favor of the transfer, please raise your hand. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Passes.
Okay. Mr. Spears, would you like to give an update for PPOC?
I'm sorry, who seconded that motion?
Ms.
I did.
Brown?
Thank you.
I think so. Yeah, I'll just go on the record, note that Dr. Barron came in at 6:12 p.m.
So we had our PPLC meeting last week on April 10th. And we talked a little bit about the assessment plan for next year, pretty much keeping it the same in lockstep with this year, so not too many changes on that. Doing math and ELA interim assessments beginning in 2nd grade, science interims through 4th through 8th grade, just like saying 8th grade. Social studies interims 6th through 8th grade, and our world language assessments in 5th grade, interims in 5th grade and 8th grade.
Big highlight there is there are fewer assessments.
Yes.
Which will be, where do we use it? Are we still using the same?
Curriculum?
No, when you talk about assessment, you talking about IAR, or what are you talking
We're talking about Skyline, IAR, all of those.
about? Are we changing anything?
We're not changing any of the assessment suites.
Uh,
Just fewer grade levels are being assessed.
And no Skyline.
We are using interim assessments. We haven't decided if they're gonna be the ones from Skyline or if our staff on site will create those. But with the current budget, I don't have any numbers to create those.
We discussed the possibility of a larger 7th grade than we have this year, and what that's going to mean for scheduling and what that means for just operations in general. Potentially having 2 7th grade classes instead of 1 7th grade class. I know this year technically we have 2 7th grade homerooms, but it's really 1 class because we don't have that many. But just as an anecdote, in talking with some of the students, a lot of them are planning to stay. Students who, at least for me, I had anticipated would be leaving us for a academic center are planning on staying. So that might impact, and we should know a little bit more clearly after Friday, I think, is the first round. Is that right, Ms. Spicer? The
First round closes on
Oh.
Friday, so I'll have a better idea, next week.
right. We talked about in the terms of scheduling. We, as Ms. Spicer talked about, we started our master schedule committee. So it was several people from the PPLC, and it was brought up about movement in the building and how the schedule might be impacting that. So we have a little bit of a traffic jam up here on the second floor in the middle of the day when all of the middle school kids have lunch and recess, and some of the older or the younger kids have music, or they have Spanish and PE. And what does that transition look like, and how can we possibly rectify that for next year? Yeah.
Have you all looked at capacity? Like, are we gonna be okay with the expansion to 8th grade and classrooms and all that?
Yeah, we should have enough. We have enough classrooms for both if we were to have 2 8th grades and 2 7th grades, we would have enough classrooms. But it's going to be very difficult to schedule all of those classes for their prep time and essentials and things like that. So right now we're working off of 2 7th grades and 1 8th grade, and 2 homerooms at every other grade level. So that's what we're working on right now. And we also, at the PPLC, talking about curriculum. What does our 8th grade ELA and math look like? How are we offering algebra and then freshman English? Talking about partnering with King High School and what that might look like for those students to earn those high school credits before they leave, for those students who do choose to stay through 8th grade. We're kind of moving into a new format for lesson planning and lesson plan submissions, where it's not weekly submissions of lesson plans, but more of a holistic scope and sequence with broken down by, I think it's by week or by quarter, like what is being taught, and then tracking what did you actually get to, so that you can pass that along to the next teacher next year, and they can go, oh, this is what they were at, this is the point they were at. We can either do some remediation or do some acceleration if we got ahead of where they should be at the end of the school year. So
What prompted that change?
I think Ms. Spicer would have to speak to that. What was the impetus for the change in kind of lesson plan tracking and submission?
Because we have adopted curriculum, and teachers are not just creating their own curriculum. Essentially, they're spending hours cutting and pasting. And so we would much rather you not cut and paste from the curriculum that gives you a lesson plan, and really track your scope and sequence and be accountable to that. So we are infusing performance, like in the business world, I guess you would call it performance management, into our weekly grade level team meetings. So we will talk about, these are the standards that you said you were gonna cover at the beginning of the school year during summer planning. This is what you plan to cover now that you have met the students and you're into a groove. This is what you actually covered over the past 2 weeks. Let's talk about where students are performing. Are you on pace? Are you behind? Are you ahead? And so that's what we are spending more. We would like to spend more of our time and cognitive energy on.
So clearly not using Skyline for this.
So the PPLC is not recommending adopting Skyline.
But on that same note, the math curriculum committee is going to present to the team, I'm thinking probably at our next meeting, their recommendations for math curriculums.
Also, maybe not Eureka, something else?
I am not on the math curriculum committee, so I can't speak to it. So when we have more information, I can share that with you, what the math curriculum committee makes a recommendation on, and then what the PPLC votes on.
Yeah, there are probably about 5 or so curriculums. I think the committee still has one more meeting before they meet for PPLC, but I think it's narrowed down, possibly Eureka Squared, kindergarten through 4th grade, and then we would adopt Envision's 5th through 8th grade. which would be their middle school curriculum starting in sixth grade going through Algebra 1, is probably going to be the recommendation.
And then our next meeting is May 8th is the morning of the LSC meeting, so we'll have another report at our next LSC meeting. And that's all from the PPLC. Yes.
Can you speak a little bit more about the anticipated high school credits? I've heard that there's been conversations about it.
It was on.
That's a Principal Spicer question. Oh, it was on already?
Yeah.
Okay. We have just met with the Principal Kelly at King College Prep. We initially started talking about, like Mrs. Spears said, the academic areas, English 1 and advanced math courses, because we will have students who possibly will be beyond Algebra 1 when they get to 8th grade. So just really looking for viable options to extend that. But now our visual and performing arts, we're trying to see if we can expand that. So what that involves is getting a high school teacher who is, and I'm not sure about the certification, but basically having a certification in order to offer the course. How will we get students over to King, because they will probably have to go after school because we start so early, and then just securing a transportation for them to get there, and then an actual instructor for the course.
Yeah, and just to highlight what Ms. Spicer said, it was kind of brought up that we wanted to do this as an incentive for students who want to stay, to offer those credits, because that's really the big incentive to go to an academic center, is to have those high school credits. If we can offer that here, then we get students to stay here, and be Eagles all the way through 8th grade. And I was talking with Dwayne during parent-teacher conferences, and I brought up the idea of extending that to the arts. So what does it look like to have a arts credit for high school before they get there, or at least tailoring our curriculum so that it aligns with what the requirements are for an arts credit in high school. So for example, a student who leaves here in 8th grade for music might be able to audition into the highest band, or and then they can waiver out of that credit that they would have to take for an arts credit. Things of that nature. So again, incentivizing the holistic view of the 7th and 8th grader.
One more question, I'm sorry, and so in general, those credits are transferable throughout any CPS school, right?
We know. Right now, my understanding is that those credits would be at the discretion of the high school that they go to. So it may or may not transfer, which is why we want to partner with King, because then we would be able to say these credits transfer to King. But I don't know exactly all of the ins and outs about how it works, because nothing is in place yet. It's all theoretical at this point.
Only universal credit that that is recognized is if you pass the Algebra 1 exam. So if you have a qualified math teacher that can teach Algebra 1 at the school, this happens at Skinner West, everybody takes the Algebra 1 test and they move on, but they only do it in 8th grade. They don't actually accelerate the 7th grade as well in that space, typically in that space.
That is what the policy says, but it depends on which selective enrollment school you go to. And I will let some remain nameless, but when I was making that decision, that was a big part of it, because depending on what school you go to, what part of the city you live in, some people are like, oh, you're good. Other people are like, no, you gotta take this placement test so that I know that you know what this paper says that you know. So, but the district policy is that algebra, it should be no barrier to that. But if we have our students in a credit-bearing course in a CPS school that is approved by the district, then they will have that on their transcript. But if a student goes, let's say you decide to go to a private high school, that's probably not going to be a credit that you get.
And I give another example. Northwestern Center for Talent Development Program offers 100 credits and high school credits. You have your student going there on Saturdays, do summers, walk out of that program with 4 high school credits, and everybody doesn't take them. And that's period. Like it's at the discretion of the principal to make a determination. Some families invest in that for, for extracurriculars, some invest in it to get those credits. And they do it strategically because they know the school that they're sending their child to will get that credit. And my son did that, and I fought with a bunch of schools to see if they would give it, and they were like, no, thank you, at the school will remain nameless, but my alma mater.
Are we still considering bringing, the teacher from King here? Cause I know we had talked about that as well.
It just depends on the contractual stuff.
Okay.
The collective bargaining agreement will dictate that. But we're exploring all options at this point, because it would be much easier to have the teacher come here. But, CT is a strong bargaining unit.
Thank you, Mrs. Spears.
Should it be on RF or BT?
Whatever it's on, it's okay. I just want to, we're going to transition to the budget presentation. What's going on? I just want to let everybody who is watching virtually know that we're going to present the budget presentation for you, so you won't see the LSC, but you'll see the budget and you'll be able to hear Principal Spicer's presentation.
Did we share the link out?
There are 28 viewers.
Oh, so yes, okay.
She
Now,
needs the
what do I
microphone.
press, Mr. Spears?
You should be good now. I had to go back to that. So
Okay.
you click up, just make sure that it works. Okay, yeah, so you're good.
All right, we want to start the presentation really talking about our CIWP priorities, because our budget really should be supporting what our priorities are. So our first priority is in curriculum and instruction, and really tailoring our instruction for the students who sit in front of us. And priority 2 is all around social emotional learning, really making sure that students feel connected and have a sense of belonging at school. All right, so just some context around the school budget. The district is opening next year with a $391 million deficit, as well as the end of URSA funds, which are the federal COVID dollars that the district got. They were able to save and spend how they needed to, but this is the last year of rollover funds. There is no other significant revenue coming in. And they're working to put all the support in place for the instructional core. Despite this, there is still overall impact to budgets because there's just no money. They've changed the formula from student-based budgeting, meaning if I have 500 students, I get a set amount of money, to making it a little bit more equitable and to focus on the district's instructional priorities. Moving forward, they're trying to streamline this process with a fully equitable based school funding model. This is supposed to clearly, this will hopefully translate to more clear articulation to schools, families, and communities of how district resources are being allocated. This is the district's approach to increase transparency as well as equity. In transparency, know how and why resources are allocated to schools, so school leaders and staff know how and why resources are allocated to our school, and then the district just being accountable for those allocations. In terms of equity, remembering that equity does not mean equal, so making sure that there is targeted universalism. Everybody should be getting what they need. This is one of the main driving forces. I brought the handout if you wanted to look at it a little bit deeper. I only have one, but I can also put this in our folder, in the budget folder that I created, in our LSC folder. But there are 12 indicators that our opportunity index is calculated on. They're broken into 3 main categories: community factors, demographic, and historical funding. Again, the community factors relate to the socioeconomic environment in which our students attend, school demographics, percentage of students that are in particular categories, and then resources that we experienced or we received over the past historically. So for us, the historical school funding partially worked in our favor because we haven't had any sizable investments for 6 years when we opened as a school. A few years ago, maybe that would have hit us a little bit different. The values are ranked by percentiles and then divided into quintiles. And so the school with the lowest need had a 14 opportunity index. The school with the highest need had a 52 opportunity index. Bronzeville has 20, our opportunity index is 28. Budget changes again, shifting away from school-based budgeting. We now receive a foundational, centrally funded assistant principal position. Our teacher positions are based on the student to teacher ratio, which is tiered by opportunity index, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. And schools no longer have to worry about the cost of a teacher. So what happened my last 5 budgets is they give me a pile of money and say, you need to hire your staff. And so what happens with that is that disproportionately veteran CPS teachers were kind of pigeonholed where they were because it costs too much to hire a veteran teacher. Transparent moment, we have been negative in our salary budget because I hired the right people for the job and not the people that I could afford. So it worked out for us because I don't have to worry about that anymore. So that's a great thing. And we also receive specific discretionary funding based on a need-based model, and schools continue to get Title I funding. So that was one of the big things that I talked about. We got equitized, I just made that whole word up, and no more classical funds, but schools of need still get title funds, which is a state thing. That's not necessarily a CPS thing, but that is a fact. So now get into the overview of our budget. Last school year, we were projected to have 423 at the 20th day, which is the day that they use to calculate our enrollment. We did meet the projection, which was 423. Currently, we have 422. We had 2 students after winter break transferred back to their school. Originally, they forgot that we were expanding, and so I did have to advocate for that. They projected us next year for 423 students, not remembering that we will be having an 8th grade. So the revised projection is 448. That number came from the current 7th graders that we have. So last year we had 59 6th graders. Of those 59, 25 chose to stay. So they used 25 to project what we would have for 8th grade.
Well, I have a question about that. So this is total enrollment.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're only projected to get 45 or 25 more students, how does that affect kindergarten? Because we're going to get 28 in each class. So wouldn't we have more than 448 students?
Yes, in theory. But what happens is because 56 kindergartners are coming in, I could have up to 48 6th graders leaving.
Oh, I see.
Yes. I had to make my math too, because that's what I thought too. But they was like, no. It kind of balances. Foundational positions. So I tried to do this historically so that you all could see the impact because I cannot explain it in dollars. When I had an SBB budget, I had a complete picture of how much actual money was allocated for my unit, but because there are quota positions and I don't have the actual cost of my positions, I can't give you a comparison. So I'm choosing to show it to you this way. So originally for the past couple of years, we had principal, clerk, counselor. That was all that was funded by the district. Any other positions had to be funded through SBB dollars, including the assistant principal. Now this year, that is going up. The AP is now a foundational position. Going on to supplemental counselors, first 2 years, SY23 and SY24, so for the past 2 years, we've had a supplemental counselor. We don't have a supplemental counselor anymore, based on our opportunity index and our enrollment. Looking at core instructional positions, we started with just Miss Keepers in SY23, and then we got an additional interventionist and a coordinator. We went down to 1.
So that's 3 positions that we're losing so far.
So core, FTE positions, this is exactly the same, this is just the foundational positions. To the, I don't think I updated this, but let me talk you through it. So for the holistic teachers, we just pause right here. So core teachers and holistic teachers, I'm gonna come back to in the table, okay? I didn't update this slide, I'll fix that. Diverse learner teachers. So this is funded through the Office of Diverse Learner Services and Supports. Past 2 years, we had 4 teachers, we are down to 2 teachers. Our special education classroom assistants have maintained. Discretionary funds. So the discretionary funds are the funds that I have left over after I have covered all of our classes and we have all of our essentials teachers. With the funds that we had for the past 2 years, I was able to, we started out with 2 miscellaneous employees. This year we didn't have any because they moved over into full-time positions because of the funds that we had available. So these hourly folks moved over into this column. I've always paid for an extra security officer because we are open from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. and sometimes later because we have basketball. I was encouraged to have 1 security guard and pay him overtime. So having someone work 7 to 6 every day was a solution that was offered. I said no. I need to fund a second position. Teacher assistants, we started in 2023 with 1 teacher assistant. That has always been the case that I funded that position since we started the school because I always wanted an assistant in kindergarten. I was never able to afford a full-time person for both kindergartens, but 1 person supported both grade levels. Last year with some additional funds, I moved these 2 folks that were hourly, and so when students weren't here, they did not work, they did not get paid, over to full-time positions. This year, I cannot afford all 4 of those positions.
So you're saying we're losing 4 positions, or just the 3?
We are not losing 4 positions. If staff that are in those roles want to stay, they will have to become part-time employees with no benefits.
Is that all 4, or just 3, or 1, or
All 4. So this goes back to the 20th day that we talked about. So again, this is what they originally gave me with the modification. That's how we got to 448, and our opportunity index is 28. Foundational positions, we talked through this. So counselor, we have 1 for every 600 students. So I have to have over 600 students in order to get another counselor. The Association for Professional School Counselors, best practices is 1 to 250. If you have a greater index, and your school is between 250 and 600, if you are equal to or greater than 48, and you have at least 250 students, you would get a additional counselor. But remember, at the beginning of my presentation, I shared that
48 was the highest.
52 is the highest in the district. And you have to have a 48. Or you can have 350 students with an opportunity index of 40 or higher. Classroom core teachers. So we fall in this first tier. Our opportunity index is less than 30. So our student to teacher ratio is 1 to 26. With that 1 to 26, based on the students that we have 18 core teaching positions. This year, I have 16 teachers, and I was set up to support 8th grade. So with those 2 teacher positions, I have an opportunity to maybe say add interventionists, both interventionists, or interventionists and a counselor. The coordinator position, I have discretion over, so I am trying to make the best decision to support students. Our PL coordinator is adult facing, so I have to decide, do I continue to build the professional capacity of my teachers, or do I support students who need academic supports and acceleration? Holistic teachers, we do have 4, so it's 1 for every 5 core teachers. We have 18, so thankfully, we will be able to maintain all 4 of our essentials classes.
Spicer, quick question.
Mhm.
Does the resident principal is a separate budgeted thing?
Mhm.
Extra separate?
Mhm. Yes, that comes from Department of Principal Quality. And then, we do get, a part-time, miscellaneous employee. So that stays the same. Table 3, when we talk about, classroom calculations, so again, our opportunity index is 28. Total number of students is 448, 26 to 1, 18 positions. Yes.
The 26 to 1 student teacher ratio, does that mean, based on our index calculation, that we won't have any classes over 26?
That is not what that's saying.
That's just how to calculate the budget within the union contract.
Yes, the union contract decides class size.
I'm very familiar, I just wanted to see.
Nope, Mr.
Just-
Spears, I'm
just-
picking up what you put down.
Just,
Yeah, yep, I got you.
hey,
Okay.
you know what, these are the questions I have to ask.
These are the questions you have to ask, absolutely. But you can see, here, if you have an index of 31 to 41, class size is
Yeah, I
supposed to
saw
be
that.
1 to, so, yes. Here, I'm sharing, what our flexible funding is, AKA discretionary funds are. So there is a base rate of $365 per student. You get an increase of $12 for every opportunity index point over 14. That is because the lowest opportunity index in the district is 14. So we have 14 extra points. So I think that's 14 times 12. And that's how they came up with, I think, our dollar amount of $533. Newcomers don't apply to us, but everybody, regardless of the number of students that you got, if they multiply whatever your number was by your enrollment, if it was less than 140,000, everybody got 140,000. So that was the base that we all got. If you had a greater opportunity index, you started with 180. So they took our 140, added our opportunity index points to it, and so we have $238,784 flexibly. Yes.
Is it public knowledge what schools are where? Like, could we go and see
Yes.
what school has an index of 14?
Yes, it is public information. The links in the PowerPoint are live. And the other thing, I wanted to leave this because I did use the template provided by the district. So schools that get Title I money, they had another table, but we don't have a table.
How much does each school get per student for Title I funds?
I don't know. I've never had a budget with Title I funds in it, so I don't know.
So it's flexible, but also like sometimes like there's Illinois Empower money, and this money is paid out of a certain bucket, and then their providers are able to be able to.
So
use those
schools of need
providers.
have multiple additional buckets that they can qualify for that will never be accessible to us based on the income of our families.
So, Ms. Spicer, high level, can you, you've given this, the discretionary, you've talked about positions here and there. Can you just give us a summary of what we're losing? Summary of that so people can understand that.
So I have 4 instructional support staff right now with varying titles. Only one of them is part-time, and that is out of the centrally funded bucket that they gave me for a part-time person. That bucket was funded at $17 an hour. You can imagine the type of candidate that you may get paying $17 an hour. Our part-time employee said, "Hey, Principal Spicer, I really love working at BCS with the after-school program. I really want to be on your staff, but this school over here is offering me $20 an hour." So I had to add additional monies to that bucket that the district gave us in order to be able to pay this person the additional monies that they negotiated. So I am able to maintain that position, but I will have to take money from here to ensure that I can maintain the hourly wage that is currently being offered. The other three instructional support positions are full-time with benefits. I had to close all three of those positions. Yesterday I had conversations with those people that I'm not supposed to have until May 31st to let them know there's an opportunity to stay here, but it may impact your family. While this is outside of the window that I'm supposed to talk to you about this, I think the ethical thing to do is to let you know.
Let me know if I'm jumping the gun with the discretionary funds, but is the plan for any of these discretionary funds to be able to pay for any of those positions that we're losing?
Yes. So currently, the way my budget is, the scenarios that I just discussed with you, of those discretionary funds that we have $97,000 for the entire school year. When you all look at the non-payroll reports in the folder, if you see, I had over $200,000 last year to allocate. And I haven't allocated anything, but we have about $97,000 left.
And that's out of this 200 and...
Out of this $238,000.
And the 97 is for like curriculum, paper, ink.
It's for everything that we need
Gotcha.
to operate as a school.
I have a question. So, based on past budget, wasn't there a percentage or a dollar amount assigned to each student, a special funds because of the pandemic? Weren't we getting a certain amount?
We-
This to be reflected now?
The monies were given to the district. So the district was able to allocate funds how they saw fit. And so we did not receive dollar amounts, we received positions. So we got a coordinator, we got a counselor, we got an extra interventionist. So they didn't hand over like a pot of money, they handed over
The positions. They funded the
positions.
Positions.
Yes.
So, and this is reflective of that now drying up, am I right?
Yes.
Okay.
But that's why showing the year before, like, the fluctuation was the ESSER fund injection. And the question, as soon as it happened, to everybody that had
Any sense?
knowledge was like, they hired all these people,
Now they go.
and then they're not gonna have jobs when this money is not available. And what states, what locations, what cities are gonna be able to figure that out and figure out what to do with that? So I probably said this before, I said real quick, that like, so Newark Public Schools took that money and gave everybody a raise. Or raised the level of they took them from year 1 salary to year 5 salary. They gave everybody $1,000. They just put money in people's pockets that work there. Like, because they were trying to figure out, like, what are we gonna do with this money and what is that gonna mean? And if we we don't add positions, but we add it to the person, then that's a pension thing, everybody made a strategic decision on how they were gonna use that money and what it looked like.
And size of district also matters. And in those positions through the hiring process, that was a part of people's decision making. And so they asked me and I asked the district, how long are you gonna fund these positions? And I was told 3 years. It's been 2. So I had to impact some people before I thought I would have to.
And the reason I said, I know corporate-wise across the board, because it happened at the hospital too. You know, we know what we got. I mean, it was nice when we got the extra, but we knew it wasn't going to last forever. And I think that's kind of how I'm looking at this. So I get it. I get it. We're going to feel the impact, but at the same time, how can I put it? I'm grateful that during a time of need, it was there.
The need hasn't changed.
Yeah.
And I think like that's the challenging part. And I agree with you. I have full knowledge. My eyes were wide open when we got this additional support. I think all of our eyes were open. I mean, we talk about it openly as a staff. The district goes through these peaks and valleys. This is not going to be the first or last time we get an injection of funds that is not going to be sustained over time, because we know that the funding of public schools is not the priority for any level of government, if we're just being honest. So we know that those peaks and valleys are going to come. However, I think that, and I don't know because I'm not on that level, because I'm very worried about my school community. I feel like there are other strategic moves that we can make where we don't invest in schools in a particular way, and give them autonomy to make the program what they need the program to be and be successful at it, and then say,
Take it away.
basically, you've been so successful, you don't need this. That's not fair either.
And Joyce, that is just one source of funds that we're losing, in addition to the classical school funds and partial discretionary funds. So that's not the whole thing, that's just one source.
And then here, so we get an additional $17,280. This used to be IoT money, meaning I could only use this money to support the instructional leadership team, whether that was professional development, extended day, consultants, whatever, to build the capacity of the IoT. They are just calling this tier 1 support. So I have teachers, like if they work on a committee and they stay after school, I pay them. If they stay for school-wide events outside of the school day, I pay them. So I will only have like $17,000 to do that, when this $17,000 was just for the IoT, and I was able to use my discretionary funds to pay for release days 4 times a year, which is about $15,000. I was able to put money away for consultants to come in to work with them. So these funds are now limited. We receive this level of funds, and there are 2 more tiers, but we're not in that tier. But we get 40 hours of IoT planning for 9 members, sub coverage for them. This is what it was last year specifically, but again, they've loosened some of the limitations for this money.
When you pay extended day for ILT, are they getting non-instructional rate?
I believe it's non-instructional.
So if we had ILT during school, would they get instructional rate?
I don't think so, because they're not instructing. So the instructional rate is not the time that you do it, it's the activity that you're engaged in.
Got it. Okay.
For special education, we had 15 students at the 20th day. That is currently 16 now. And then we have another student that is finishing the process. So it will be 17 before they repool these numbers in May. Based on us having 15 students, they took our teacher allotment from 4 to 2. And then they kept our paraprofessionals, so taking us from a non-cluster allocation from 8 to 6. I have a meeting tomorrow to talk about this, because I have some concerns. When you look at LRE stands for least restrictive environment. So where are students who need support, where are they getting it? All of our students are getting it in their general education classroom. They're not being most of the day. They're not being taken out of the classroom for instruction, or they're not spending their full day in a separate classroom. But this poses a problem. I have a teacher whose certification stops at 3rd grade, so she cannot teach or support students beyond 3rd grade. So I would have one person to support students 4th through 8th grade. And if they're all in the general education setting, I don't know if she can be in 8 classrooms at one time. And maybe 4, because we do try to schedule them so that they're in the same homeroom, but she cannot be in 4 places at one time. So I have a meeting tomorrow to talk through what that will look like. We have one student who requires EL support, so we don't qualify for, we don't need an ESL or bilingual endorsed teacher. They just get support from a teacher who has an ESOL endorsement, and that person will just support them. And so we get $450 for materials or anything that student may need. We do have a personalized learning coordinator, but again, I did reach out to the district with discretion on how to use this coordinator position, and I will have to repurpose this position to support students. I made the choice of students over teachers. That was a tough conversation today. Lunchroom staff, based on our numbers, whether we are considered a cooking kitchen, I would say a baking kitchen, a cooking kitchen, so we keep our lunchroom manager, our cook, and our porter. Security, again, the district only provides one, which is why the discretionary funds are much lower, because I pay for the second full-time security staff. These are just some of the other additional positions that the district provides. We don't qualify for tutor corps. We did apply for OST funds for the summer, so Mr. Spears and I are gonna get some offerings out there. We have to apply at the end of the year for the fall, so we have not received those funds yet. They were passing out those funds like it was going out of style. We have federal money. I don't know what this is gonna look like, because when we first started, it wasn't like we had a whole bunch of programming. And that was because those funds were limited. But with that infusion after COVID and trying to get people involved, we did get a very generous budget, but we do plan to apply for those. But we potentially may have to decrease our Eagle Extra offerings. Social workers are allocated on student need basis. Right now, we have a social worker for 2.5 days. I haven't gotten my related service providers report for next year yet, so that's what it is currently. I don't know if that's gonna change. We have a nurse 2 days a week, but because the other school he supports has a type 1 diabetic student that needs close monitoring, he has been our virtual nurse. Custodians is based on the square footage. They haven't confirmed this, but we have weekly facilities meetings, so I'll check and make sure that we still have the same number of custodians. We have our engineer, which is 1, and field services support. This is another big impact for us. With all the technology we have in the building, the district was supporting us with a tech on site for a full day once a week. Next year, because we do not have a tech co on staff, they are only funding it half a day, so 4 hours instead of 8. If I want to do the other 4 hours, it will be an additional $9,300. I have a quote for if I do it for 3 months, 6 months, or for the full year. So the maximum amount that it would cost out of our $97,000 would be $9,300. Questions? We will get to specific allocations of the $97,000 when we come back. I know that we've started to preliminarily share this information with the school community. I know one big question that people have been asking is, what do we need? And I probably won't know that until May 3rd, when I'm able to do the allocations. Right now, what is happening is Ms. Jones and I are looking through all of the purchase orders and the school checks to see what we spent money on and how that spending aligns to our CIWP. So when we come next time, I will have budget transfers, a lot of them like we did last year, because I am trying to be a good steward and take care of as much as I can now, and spend down funds. And then the other big thing we'll talk about, other 2 big things we'll talk about are any edits to the CIWP, and then how we will allocate the rest of the discretionary funds.
Could you make a note, we're not in public comment yet, so if people have questions
Okay,
in the
yes.
other space, they have to wait till public comment.
Yes.
Thank you.
So, based on last year, how are we, or do you give kind of a notice of whatever of the amount of kids, 7th graders that are planning to come here? Or do we kind of?
I don't really give notice, but I do send out a survey to ask them to let me know. Once you've made your decision, let me know so that I can open up seats or I can anticipate any programmatic changes. Since I sent out the survey, less than 10 have formally responded. There's a back door that I can check by looking at my projected enrollment for next year, but it's only after people have selected their seat and the student is being projected to another school that I can see it. So after Friday, I should have a better idea.
Why don't we do something about this? We have these scheduled community budget discussions. I attended one of the earlier ones. It doesn't sound like anything that a member of the community has to say is being considered in these decisions. So for us as parents who see this, have concerns, what are our avenues?
Yesterday I had a principals meeting. I'll let you respond. Yesterday I had a principals meeting. During our principals meeting, it was just an all-day budget session. In the 6 years that I've been a principal, a whole principals meeting has not been dedicated to allocating your budget. So, to me, that is an indicator that everybody is making hard decisions. So I'll just say that. I don't want to purport that we have it the worst. I don't know what everybody's situation is. But if an entire principals meeting is just dedicated for you to collaborate and talk to people to figure out, like, how are you covering this? What are you doing there? How are you being creative? Is an indicator of just where we are funding-wise. In the conversation that I had, there is a belief that I have what I need.
Based on what?
Based on what I've been given, I have what I need. So,
With what you have, they're saying make it happen.
yes.
Mhm.
And I would say, even if you look at that core out, here's a calculated example, so the people I've taught, principals I've talked to, not the one I live with, I'm related to by marriage, they're all like, this is terrible, we're all something, you know, like, I was telling earlier, like, I've only heard one person say, like, I feel like I'm good, and I was like, oh, I gotta investigate, like, the demographics of that building and what they have to determine, and it could be their opportunity index is high. And that could be the one, they could be at like 49%, you know, they might not be getting Title I funds, but the opportunity index is high enough for them to have like that bump in budget based on what Principal Spotcher just presented to say, we're good. But also in conversations with people, it's been, when that percentage fluctuates between 51% free reduced versus 49, it's a question about tough choices about budget. And then in some places, like the Lanes of the world, or that's when it's like, well, if you got a community that can kick in, if you got resources, if you got institutions and local institutions that are partners, how are you supplementing and complementing that, and what does that look like? So I would also expect, it sounds like it didn't happen on the March 19th GPCAC meeting, that our local leadership of Greater Brownsville CAC, Pastor Chris Harris, will be addressing this in some way, shape, or form for our networks. Or just,
I think it was anticipated, but the budgets weren't out at that point. But I do think that meeting was in anticipation of this because everybody knew it was going to be bad. But I'll also say this, since I've become a classical school principal, and I'm in the middle, and I know the north side because I work in Sandra, and I know the south side because that's where I work. We've been trying to get the classical school principals together. I've literally had 3 meetings with them, all 6 of us. So that is an indicator that everybody is suffering.
Is it, so the money that comes into the school through Friends of Bronzeville, is that money able to be used for some of the shortages that you're referring to? Like, could it be used at all to compensate staff so that staff is not lost? Or would it have to be shifted to cover things like paper and ink, but then you would have more funds from that pot to pay?
Yes, that's the strategy that I'm thinking of, for a number of reasons. I think it's something tangible that people can give, and it's also, like, there's some creativity with that. Because I may not have a lot of money, but I work at a corporation. So I may be able to get my corporation to donate 5 boxes of copy paper. And so that can offset cost. You know, things like that, so really in-kind donations, whether it could be cash or it could actually be items. If I say, you know, we need 400 2-in-1 packs of crayons, like, you know, with back to school, like, people can help us in that way. So I'm leaning more towards instructional materials and things from the friends of or from our family community, so that more of the discretionary funds can be spent on people and professional development and prioritizing our people in that way, since I've already had to use my discretion for one position away from the adults in the building.
So I understand that you mentioned, I think on May 3rd, there was going to be a meeting. So the next meeting, we would have.
So it has to be before May 3rd, because I have to be balanced in EPM, and which is our budgeting software, and LSC approval. So it'll be before May 3rd.
So is there an ask that could happen relatively quickly where parents could do things like get things donated to the school, so that the people that you spoke with already about cutting positions or making them part-time could perhaps be alerted sooner than later that maybe that wouldn't have to happen?
And just add, you know, you and I kind of talked about this. The only problem with the positions, if there is an ask, we would need to have that funded in advance, because, you know, you wouldn't want to have a person's position contingent on, you know, donating throughout the year, quarterly donations or anything like that. And the other problem with that is it's just not sustainable. You know, it's like,
So
even if
that's
we
why
get it
I'm
this year, what about next year and the year after that? And then, Akira, to answer your question, a couple of things we could do. One, we have requested a budget appeal. So once we're in the process of that, we've also requested how we can appeal our opportunity index number. Because that is, you know, how they assign that, and, you know, we're kind of right near another category, so how did they assign that? So that's one thing, and then and this is just me, I think, you know, our aldermen, our elected officials, just kind of letting them know what's happening here, particularly, you know, Pat Dow, who is our alderman. I think we should reach out, and I think we have to be advocates for our school community, because if we don't, then they're gonna continue to do it. And I tell Ms. Spicer this, and my wife, who's a teacher all the time, they do it, and they know that they'll make it work. That's why they do it, because teachers are like literally known for like, hey, we'll give it to them, and they'll make it work. And they have to stop that. And the stress and all the anxiety that it puts on them and us, it's just not fair to make them make it work all the time.
In order for me to submit an appeal, these are the 3 criteria. I have to complete my FY25 budget, all positions, buckets, etc. are funded, and there is a negative. So if I'm balanced, I stop there. There is not enough teachers to cover the required number of classrooms at or below the CTU student maximum. That's not a criteria we'll qualify for. And they'll do an analysis of our internal accounts and 124 funds. We don't have 124 funds, so that's not gonna affect us. But it would just be me completing my budget with all positions and buckets are funded, and there is a negative. And so if there is a negative, I would have to prove why I need that much money. So let's just say I want to continue our practice of release days for our teachers, and that costs $15,000. It's a possibility when they sit down with me, they would say, you don't need 4, you need 2. Now you're not negative. So I'm not counting on us up here.
So bottom line, it just sounds like strategically we have to come together and figure out how to utilize what we have the best way possible. And that's what I'm saying. I know, because I know it happened at Rush too. So that's why I'm not as, you know, shocked. It's just kind of across the board. It's not just the schools. It's all post-pandemic. It has hit everybody pretty much the same way. So you know, we just
I
got
think the difference here is that it's children, and it takes more than teachers to run a school building. If I don't have my instructional support staff it is me, Mr. Williams, and AP Bellamy
Doing
supervising lunch,
recess.
recess, before school, after school, because teachers are here contractually 7:45 to 2:45. That is it, that is nothing more, nothing less. They don't have to be here beyond that time. There is no professional development. Like, those are the things, and we are literally talking about children. So,
I get that, but I guess in reality, if I have to go back and envision what life would have been pre-pandemic, and then pandemic hit, so we got extra funds. So I guess I don't want to spend as much time harping on what we're without. I would like to be positive and say, okay, this is what it's going to be. What do we need to do to wear these shoes at this point in time? Because nothing's going to change overnight. I think it's pretty much kind of a sealed deal. Now, we can advocate for some additional things, but I think our concentration and our efforts should probably be aimed towards what we have been allocated and how do we live within that.
I do think that it needs to be a both and. And the reason why I say it needs to be a both and, because this district specifically is not funded in the way that it's supposed to be funded, regardless of if we have federal URSA funds or not. We don't have a school nurse and a social worker in every school because we don't have the funds, which is why the teachers went on an 11-day strike before COVID. And so they were advocating for those basic services that we need as a school,
Still don't
but are
have
not funded because we're not funded properly from the state. If we were funded properly from the state, the school district would open in the black. We open in the red every year. That amounts vary year to year, and of course, because of that infusion, it was not felt as much over the last 3 years. And so the pendulum is just swinging back to the fact that we are not funded properly at the state level. At the GBCAC meeting, I think that the one thing that stood out to me the most, and Dwayne would have to tell me of the alderman's name, Jeanette Taylor, I got it, is that as a city and a state, we're not holding our legislators accountable. So she talked about how we spent $80,000 on beautifying Michigan Avenue and the tulips, and it stung this morning on the ABC 7 News when they were talking about unveiling the tulips on Michigan Avenue. And I know that we're opening with $391 million deficit. We don't need tulips on Michigan Avenue. We need funding for our schools. So it has to be a both and. And so I am going to do my due diligence to make sure that I prioritize what we're spending the $97,000 on, and that's what you all are here at our special call meeting that we need to select a date for. And that's what we'll approve. But once we do the approval, there are some things that we probably have to talk about in terms of mobilizing and just supporting the district as a whole.
With the shortfall when it comes to support staff, as you were mentioning it, that's what I was thinking about too. Is there any recommendation from these wonderfully smart people who did this budget on how we're supposed to cover lunch and recess with no staff?
They can be hourly, which is how I open the hourly positions. Part-time hourly positions.
There's gonna be some, never mind.
Can parents volunteer?
Yes, they can.
That's not realistic.
I know, I remember the crossing guard stuff, but I just mean,
But I'm just saying, different day,
Recess?
different time. Perhaps parents, once they get a true understanding, perhaps they will step up.
I just
One day
think-
at recess?
Yeah. But I'm just saying, I know, but that's how.
The whole point of this
Yeah.
was to have an equitable system. And so I think initially, I thought, oh, with these changes now, all the schools will have a social worker. All the schools will have an AP. All the schools will have a nurse. And then I read it and I'm like, so I get it. We are resourceful, but we know that every school community does not have parents who have the resources, the time resources or the funding. And here, for us, that can't be the answer, because it's not fair, and it's not a parent's job is to be a partner to the school, but as someone who's knee-deep in philanthropy every day, it is not on our parents to make up for what our school district is supposed to do. So when I ask what can we do, of course, we're gonna do everything
Yeah. In the
that we
meantime,
can
yeah.
to make sure that our students and our teachers and our staff have what we need. But this is so circular. So it's like, it's robbing Peter to pay Paul. And nothing that I've heard from CPS yet makes it make sense.
And it's driving time and acquisition.
And eventually parents and families. I mean, that's the bottom line.
No, this,
Ooh,
she's closed
say
discussion.
anything.
About 3 hours.
Right.
One other thing too. Oh, no, that wasn't you. But this has been happening in our city for 50 years.
Mm-hmm.
That's the point.
So
not new.
the inequity is the inequity because we are one of the most segregated cities in the country. So like, and I won't name your school. Like, so when a school somewhere has like a beer garden and a carnival, they're doing that to pay for 2 other people to come in that building and do stuff. I mean, like, it's not a bake sale. That is a community rallying around. So the other thing, which I've said to some people in this room, which is all of this is, I agree, Steve, part of it, and personal advisor. People are going to choose. Like, if I gotta spend money, I might as well pay for private school. Or as people of means, whoever those people are, I'm not gonna, I don't know anybody's pocket, I'm not anybody's pocket. It's like, well, how do you concentrate your giving? What does that look like for you if you're a person that gives? And it's like, well, if I'm gonna opt into public schools in this city, I gotta concentrate my giving in this space. So can I give my time, talent, and energy? Or will I write this check? So I worked at a citywide magnet in 2001, and a parent walked in with a pallet of paper. Like, I know you all need paper. I just got my company and just like donate this pallet. That was in 2000, like, it's not.
But that's what I think we need to do,
22
like,
years later, yeah, I'm just saying.
find
it's
all
not
the
new. Like,
avenues,
I
yeah.
just want to remind people that, like, this isn't some new thing that's been happening in schools where parents have means that don't get Title I funds. People say, well, we got to do, and what does that look like?
Yeah.
And so it is leveraging. I wasn't at the March 19th CAB meeting, but like it is like that organization in theory is supposed to be leveraging the community resources in order to figure out how to get OST resources to schools that need it. And in their brain, and this happened with some grants they tried to get, and I put Bronzeville's name in the grant because I'm like, man, I'm gonna just get the school, get the books to Bronzeville. We got rejected from a grantee, a funder, because they were like, well, they got money already. And I was like, but they got kids, and kids need books, and you can't make that presumption. So, so like, it's a little bit of six and one hand, half a dozen the other. But this is, I just want to, again, the historical nature of, this has been going on in our city for many decades. And people decide how they're going to engage in it. And honestly, people without kids or people not connected to education don't engage in it at all. Because it's not my kid. And it's like, hey, it's a collective process, though. It's a collective process. My kid's done with this, but hey, it's my profession, but it's also something I care about. So, but everybody's activated that way. So how you talking to your cousins and your nephews and your folks that don't have kids, are connected, but live in this city? Yeah, rising tide floats all boats.
Cool. So, that's in the spirit of getting done, we still have to go through another couple of things on the agenda. We'll close that discussion and then we'll answer any questions from the public when we get to questions and concerns. Next, we're gonna go into a closed session so that we can discuss principal evaluations. So that means temporarily, we're gonna have to turn off of the YouTube channel and we'll be back shortly.
Here, I check.
Okay.
So now we got more. I move that we accept the evaluation as discussed.
Second.
Motion been made, properly second, any discussion? There being none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, great. Ms. Spicer.
We'll change the document, your essence. We'll change the document to final and send it to Steve, and it's Steve's responsibility to upload it into the system.
Okay.
So we should do that before May 1st.
You send it to me tomorrow or tonight, I'll do it tomorrow.
I might do it right now.
All right, new business, we have to, certify the, local school council elections. First of all, I wanna say congratulations, you all, everybody here was, re-elected to serve on the
I
local
am a
school
little salty
council.
that you got two
We had a
votes
pretty good turnout, for
because I was
a
campaigning.
non-new school election without a whole lot of controversy. So thank you
I
all.
only have 7 friends.
I don't know if you guys have seen the results posted, have you all seen them?
Was there any controversy?
No,
Oh, okay.
none whatsoever. And the judges weren't drunk this year, so.
That's a public meeting.
Oh, but that was the truth.
So you guys have seen the results, anybody have any questions about them?
So I do want to share specifically that, there were 105 valid parent and community applications for ballots. Total defective parent, community, white ballots cast 7. So the total valid parent, community ballots cast was 98. There were no challenge voter ballots, in the security envelope. There were 18 staff members who signed the staff poll sign-in sheet. There were 5 defective school staff, ballots. So there were 13 valid school staff ballots. There were 0 challenges to staff ballots. So the total valid white and yellow ballots cast was 111. With 111 ballots, in alphabetical order, parent representatives, Ms. Barclay, 61, Joyce Brown, 54. Oh, I'm sorry,
Wait,
not in
do I have to put
alphabetical
this
order,
down?
it's in ballot order. Dr. Barron, 46, Stephen Mitchell, 80, Yanni Moore, 71, Keith Seals, 47. Teacher representatives, Jennifer Lewis, 9, Reginald Spears, 11. Non-teaching staff, Mr. Lewis, 7. Community representatives, Dr. Pope, 58, Dr. Davis, 53. And then our student representative, Yash, won with 74 votes.
Yay for Josh.
How did we get 5 defective staff?
Because all the staff voted after the long day of
I was
parent-teacher
just going to say,
conferences.
report card pickup. That's what that was.
The whole person explained
Very
very clearly.
clearly.
She took her job seriously, I appreciate it.
With over 90% of report cards picked up on that day. It was a long day. No, I know, that's what I'm saying. 5 of us were
So
tired.
are we, I move that we certify the LSC election results.
Second.
Motion been made, properly second, any discussion?
That's excellent, by the
There
way.
being none, all those in favor of certifying the election, please raise your hand.
You didn't hear me.
No, I'm trying
Any opposed?
Oh, he did.
Yeah, he didn't.
to. Mr. Mrs. Spears.
We will, certify the election. Now we need to set a date for our special meeting. How much time do you need to get the details together?
I just looked at the calendar. Let me pull up my calendar and see. Next week, I am available in the evening on Thursday. Nobody wants me on Friday. Thursday the 25th works for me.
Mm-mm.
Okay. What about Tuesday the 30th? April,
This is 5:30? Yeah.
whatever time you want it to be.
Tuesday is better.
Tuesday is definitely better.
Tuesday is definitely better.
That's the 23rd, right?
No, the 30th.
Oh.
The 20,
Hold on, when do we gotta put in by what date? The 3rd?
May 3rd.
We have a couple of days to rec, okay. So y'all wanna do 5:30 or try and get a little early, or what are your thoughts?
We have a scheduling
can-
meeting.
Until 4 o'clock or maybe 4:30.
We'll say 4:30.
Yeah.
4:30?
No, we have
No,
a meeting until
we-
4:30.
We have our scheduling meeting until 4:30.
So 5 o'clock?
Y'all wanna go right?
It doesn't matter to me. I'm
I
gonna be
mean-
here anyway, so it doesn't matter to
So,
me.
George, can you, if this
I'm
time work for you?
checking real fast.
Miss Mary, go home.
I'm assuming so.
30.
That's the 30th? Let me see here. I'm not signed in. I think I should probably be okay. Now the guy's got my phone with my calendar on it.
Alright. 4:30 for everybody at 5? Or George, you
Oh, I thought we were
still-
saying 5. I was
At
saying-
5, I
At
said
5.
4:30 the date.
Oh, the day, yeah,
At 5.
yeah. I think I can make
Oh,
it.
that was funny. I got that.
Alright, so we'll do our special meeting, and we'll send that out to the public as well. 4:30 at 5 p.m.
Mr. Spears, will you plan to, stream that as well? So that,
Okay.
Will be
And
held
then just keep in mind, guys, we come
on
right back on 5/8
Tuesday,
for our normally scheduled LSC meeting.
April
I'm sure Mr.
30th.
Vice should have 5
Have the
trillion
scheduling meeting.
transfers.
next week, no,
The
on,
next meeting.
yeah, on the 30th, yeah.
Can we do the scheduling meeting in here so that I can set up while we're talking?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I just have to talk to Ms. Thomas about where her class can go.
Okay.
Just remind.
Special meeting.
I'll forget until that Tuesday.
Hold on.
So guys, just for the record, 4:30 is our special meeting, and then 5/8 is our normally scheduled.
Correct.
Special LSC
April
meeting.
30th. You keep using the time.
Sorry, no, I'm using the date.
4:30 is our special meeting.
That's the date.
April 30th is our
Ms.
special
Brooks, are you
meeting.
gonna put the? Thank you.
4:30 is our special meeting.
April 30th at 5 p.m.
That's too complicated for them to understand. 4:30.
That's second shave today.
4:30.
That's a 3-hour meeting, bro. You already said Chicago people.
April 30th.
Which email would you like that sent to?
Classy and sassy.
Classy N Sassy.
All right, so next we're gonna move on to questions, comments, and concerns.
There are none.
Do we still have 28?
38.
Oh.
You want me to last call?
No.
It's 8 o'clock.
All right, so there are no questions, comments, or concerns. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion been made and properly second. Any discussion? There being none, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Thank you all for your time. Please join us on April
4:30.
30th